I can't stop buying games. I see a sale for something I'm kinda interested in, and I just can't help myself. I'm not spending myself out of house and home or anything, but my backlog of games to play is growing at a frankly terrifying rate, and I need to do something about it. I know I'm not going to stop buying them, that'd be crazy. I'm finding new great games that I want to play all the time, and before my existence on this planet is done, I want to play as many of them as I can. No. Instead, I'm going to accelerate the rate that I try new games and decide if they're worth keeping on my list, or if they can be thrown to the side. This month, I'm going to be playing a new game from my backlog every day and decide if I should come back to them later or banish them to the shadow realm of, well, sitting in my library like they have been up until now. But before we get to the games, we have to go through the method, because it's all well and good trying these games, but if there aren't any rules, how can I be sure that I'm giving each game a fair shot? How can I be sure that I'm being unbiased? And how can I get to the end and tell you if this is something you should try for yourself? So here's my list of 30 games in 30 days. I've picked from a variety of genres and I've tried to keep hopping between them so I can keep things fresh. I've excluded anything like a grand RPG, since they normally take quite a long time to get started, so it wouldn't really feel fair, as well as visual novels for a very specific rule-related reason, which I'll come back to in a sec. For each game, I'm going to write down my initial thoughts of how much I enjoyed them, say if I want to revisit them in future, write down how I'm feeling about the experiments after each play session, and give my feelings a score out of 5. I have to play 1 hour of each game, and that hour starts when I get to actual gameplay. Most games have a cutscene or a painfully slow tutorial, so this rule has the most wiggle room, but the bottom line is at least 1 hour when proper gameplay starts. This is why visual novels are excluded, since they technically lack real gameplay for basically 90% of the playtime. I'm also going to try to limit myself from going beyond that hour or revisiting any of these games in my spare time, since I want to give each game the same amount of time, even if I like some more than others. I'm also going to aim to play these at the exact same time every day so that my energy levels and mood should be about the same for every game. I'm obviously going to be recording each gameplay session, and I'm also going to use a face cam so you can see my facial expression and any commentary and see how I'm enjoying each one. I did consider streaming this, but I wanted to form my own opinions, and I'd also rather slouch in my chair like a slug instead of worrying about looking presentable or trying to talk and be entertaining. So the reason I'm doing all this is to answer 2 questions. Firstly, do I actually want to play these games to completion, or at least get my money's worth so I can cross them off my list? And secondly, is this method of playing a new game every day a good idea, or should you stick to one game for a longer period before deciding how to proceed? With these questions in place, there's nothing left to do but start. I promise I'm not going to do that every day. This video is already going to be way too long as it is. The month started off strong with 2 hits back to back. Robocop Rogue City on day 1 was stupid fun. This is one of those games that looks really boring when you see gameplay in videos, but playing it just feels great.
You have been neutralized with a crack shot.
Heads popped, justice was served, I'm definitely coming back for more. The day after, it was Hades. This was always going to be a winner since I like roguelikes, and this is known as one of the best. Combat was fast-paced and the right amount of challenging, and every time I speak to someone, I get immense bisexual panic. Suffice to say, I'll be coming back to this one for sure. For the first 2 days, I felt fine about the experiment, but it was only 2 days and 2 games. If only I knew the roller coaster I was climbing towards over the next 4 weeks. First bump in the road came on day 3 with The Witness. Puzzle games are fun, but often require you to take your time and think, and when you have an hour to play as much as you can, you tend to get a bit impatient. I didn't mind this one. I wouldn't say no to playing more, but I wouldn't say it's high on my list. But if there's one thing that can bring me back to life, it's Bayonetta. This is DMC, but you play as a woman wearing her hair. The combat is great, the humor is hilarious, and obviously, you know, I'm gonna climax on fuck yeah. Oh my god! Damn right I am. Horny. I am absolutely coming back to this for a multitude of reasons. Next came The Swapper. This was the first game that set a sort of trend for the month, where I played an hour of a game and it gave me an idea for a video I'd like to make. I won't get too deep into the weeds, but The Swapper is a puzzler with a mechanic that only gets more horrifying the more you stop and think about it, and I very much want to play more so I can see where it all goes, but alas, on to the next game. Gris is extremely chill and extremely beautiful. It's a visual treat with a great soundtrack and abstract, wordless storytelling. Another video idea hits my to-do list, and another game rejoins my backlog. By this point, I was starting to feel the burn. I wanted to play some games in my spare time, but I didn't want to get even more whiplash when I knew I had to come back to play something new every single day. I was also worrying that when I do come around to play some of these games again, I'm not going to remember what happened in the first hour and have to replay, which can turn me off a game even if I really want to play it. Regardless, I pressed on. Next, DMC5. This is just such a fun ride. characters are stupid, over the top, quick machines, the combat is great even if I suck at it, and the soundtrack is obviously the best in the biz. This was a free spot, of course I want to play more of this and the rest of the series, plus it gets major bonus points for that plot catch-up sequence. I don't understand why this isn't a thing in literally every single game in a series. You think gamers are going to remember something that they played a year ago, let alone 10 years ago? Next, Nuclear Throne. This was something that I added on recommendation of Jack Sather, who makes great videos that you should definitely watch. It's a very standard roguelite that came out in 2015. I don't not like it, and I actually had a lot of fun playing it. My only gripe is it's a very basic game compared to a lot of more modern titles in the same genre. I can only really play one roguelike at a time, and if I had to pick one from my list, this would be pretty far down it because it's just pretty basic. It's not a bad game, it just doesn't stand out enough to top my list when there have been so many bangers come out in the last 9 years since this was released. And yes, it does make me want to vomit that 2015 was 9 years ago. And Medieval was the first game that I didn't really gel with all that much. I was expecting a boomer shooter to be fast paced with constant chaos, but this was quite slow with the weapons feeling quite delayed and unresponsive. I also felt like I got lost a lot, which isn't really what I want with something I feel should be moving so quickly. Possible skill issue. It's not a bad game, but the setting and the style just weren't for me. I want to play more, but similar to Nuclear Throne, it's coming after other boomer shooters that I just like more. Then I played Death's Door, and as a contrast, this is one of the games that I liked the most in this entire thing. Everything was hitting. Fun, challenging combat, good writing, nice soundtrack, great art style. No complaints, just give me more of this. Turning forces of nature into bureaucracy never fails, so I'm looking forward to going back and getting that promotion. Next, the Talos Principle. This is another puzzler, but this one was very smooth. I only managed to get stuck once towards the end of the hour, so that ain't too bad for little old me. Story here is intriguing and the whole premise was very philosophical sounding, which mainly went over my head, but it is fun seeing games since it doesn't really happen all that often. Nier Replicant was good fun, but man oh man, does this have a slow start. I also know one of the major twists of this world, so going in with that mindset for the first playthrough probably isn't how you meant to play it. Still, fun combat and I want to know more about that story. Also, it's cool to see that someone managed to make an RPG protagonist that's even more of a twink than Cloud. Dusk is another boomer shooter, but this one hits the spot oh so much more. It's constant movement and chaos with very simple ways to get around without feeling too lost. There are no checkpoints, which did freak me out to start off with, but most levels can be completed in around 5 minutes anyway, so it's not so bad. However, even though I was enjoying most of the games at this point, I was feeling pretty done with this challenge. I wasn't even halfway through and I was already so sick of starting a new game every day when all I wanted to do was chill out and play a single game that I wanted to play for an extended period of time. It also didn't help that I was starting to get really busy with work at this time, so that might have played a part, but still, I pressed on anyway. And am I glad that I pressed on? The Banner Saga is a gem of a game and it was a treat to play for that hour. The art style, the music and the story are also well done. The gameplay is tense and challenging but easy to pick up, and I wish I'd played this earlier, but I feel like Baldur's Gate 3 has really molded me to enjoy RPGs a whole lot more, so it's probably for the best. Then, Little Nightmares reminded me what it feels like to be creeped out, and I loved it. Awesome, wordless storytelling that works great with the horror you don't really understand. I need to play more of this one, and I can't wait to do so. And then came a game recommended to me by my buddy Cody Bonds. This is an old open world game from the Xbox 360 era, and as with all old games running on modern PCs, it took a little bit of faffing to get started. Oh yeah boys, it's working, oh my god. The fucking Nvidia overlay launched and, oh, my entire PC maybe crashed, no, we're all good. Nice. However, once it was going, this game was a whole hell of a lot of fun. The noir colour palette being filled in with colour once you clear areas of the map is such a creative way to show your influence. It was even cooler once I found out that this game is loosely based on a real dude who professionally pissed off Nazis for his entire life, which is about the most badass profession you can have outside of Tyrannosaurus Rex wrestler. Also, this game, mad horny, like, goddamn, someone dunked this game in ice water. This is the first shot of the game, okay? And then your home base is inside this, what do you call this, a boudoir? I don't really know. Anyway, I was on a roll, loving every game, and even though I was still not enjoying the constant variety, at least the games were fun. Then I played Stray. This was another strong addition that I liked a lot more than I thought I would. I was in a god-awful mood when I started playing this, and I nearly burst into tears when that cat was limping around, but the gameplay here is simple but fun, and the atmosphere and world building are really great. There's just something about learning about the world that once was from the ruins that remain that's always so cool. Well, there's another video idea added to the list, but on to the next game. A Plague Tale Innocence is another one that I liked a whole lot more than I thought I would. The story here is interesting and really well performed. As a former annoying small child, the little brother here pretty much nails it, even if he does take a little bit too long to realize the depth of the shit that we're in. The horror of the rats and the creative ways the game uses them is really cool, and when you're totally surrounded with only a burning stick between you and getting swarmed, that's pretty spooky, especially with all the noise they make. I want more. And then with Sunless Sea, the streak of me wanting to play more of these games finally comes to an end. I think I just expected this to be something else. I was expecting top-down Dredge, but this is basically a text-based RPG that does a really poor job of explaining what you should be doing. The atmosphere and world building here is really cool, but it just needs a quest journal or something because I played for an hour and I have no idea what or if I did anything the entire time I was playing it. Maybe after watching the guide I could give this another go, but for now I'm going to leave it alone. Then I played Star Wars Squadrons. I mean, this is kind of a free spot. If something has Star Wars or Harry Potter theming, then my nostalgia brain is going to kick in and I will forgive all kinds of sins, but not transphobia. Fuck you, JK. Hearing the music and the iconic sound effects, it just lit my brain up and sold me that this was absolutely for me. I want to hop into VR and dust off my joystick, but that'd be kind of cheating. This was made for me, so of course, I'm going to love it, and I did. Speaking of things I love, I was once a pretty avid skateboarder, so skating games have always hit for me, but Oli Oli is unlike any other I've ever played. I only played 30 minutes since at that point I knew what the game was going to be for the duration, but I could not wrap my head around these controls and kept messing up for the first 15 minutes. That said, I do like this and will probably be installing this on my Steam Deck for a quick 20-minute blast here and there when I'm taking a shit. It knows what it's trying to do and it does it pretty decently. I've heard later games spice things up more, so they can be added to the backlog too. Great, I've removed one game and added another two. Then I played Sayonara Wild Hearts. Two things about this game. Firstly, I finished a full run in under an hour, so completing the game during this challenge, which wasn't something I saw coming. And secondly, this game is a 10 out of 10 and everyone and their dog should play it. No exceptions. The most similar feeling I can liken playing this game to is watching the fireworks display at Disney World. It just feels magical. The soundtrack is awesome and beautiful. The visuals are crazy and I think they look perfect. The gameplay here just keeps you on your toes constantly and offers plenty of challenge if you want to get perfect runs, but it's easy to pick up in moments for anyone. This is truly a 10 out of 10 perfect game and you should play it. My only complaint is that I wish there were more because I want it. And then I played Hollow Knight. Now initially, I was really enjoying this. The game looks phenomenal. The soundtrack is excellent and the gameplay, while simple, has a decent feel to it. And of course, it has a reputation of being one of the best games ever made for some reason. And then it happened. Shit. Oh god, please no. Oh, please no. Oh my god, that is how I lose everything. That is, no, that's not fair. No. After this, I literally sat in silence for 2 full minutes in disappointment and frustration. Now, I know that over the course of the entire game, that 500 will be a drop in the bucket, but at that moment, it was like someone had taken my life savings, put them in front of me, and lit them on fire. Regardless, I obviously want to play more of this, and my only real complaint is that jumping and attacking, for some reason for me, always feels like it was designed specifically to kill you. Like, why do I move backwards after doing a jump and attack, meaning I can't make the jump and get the attack off? Anyway, I'm excited to come back once I've cooled off. And then to my surprise, I finished another game, Jazzpunk. I wasn't expecting to finish this in a single sitting, and I didn't like it anywhere near as much as Wild Hearts. I don't really know how to explain this game other than to say it's basically just a joke game. Now, I don't say funny because that would imply that it's got plots and gameplay as well as comedy. No, this is basically just a joke, and when nothing was serious, it kind of felt like, well, why should I take it seriously? After 30 minutes or so, I was pretty done, but eventually I got to the end. The humor, which is a subjective thing, was very hit and miss for me, so that's kind of the whole game. I wouldn't play anymore, but I did complete it, so I'm not sure what to score this one. Either way, it was very creative, but for me, it felt pretty dated and not that great. We're on the final stretch into the last 6 games, and I'm feeling the burn big time. At this point, I'm just staring at that timer, and I want the hours to be over so I can move on with my day, but we gotta keep playing. My Friend Pedro is a good game. The gameplay is fun, the slow-mo is cool, and the pace is relentless. I'm not really sure what the plot is about, but I get the feeling it's not quite as important as the style point, so that's just fine. Honestly, I did enjoy playing the game, but I just didn't want to be playing it right now, so it was a little bit tarnished by that. Plus, I was hoping for a cameo from a certain Pedro in particular, but alas, not today. Then I played Prey. The intro and opening soundtrack to this game is super cool, but it does kind of slow to a crawl once you get into proper gameplay. I think stealth games either aren't for me, or at least aren't for this sort of challenge when I want to see as much as I can in an hour. Still, I want to come back and work on what's going on with that story, even if the gameplay wasn't anything incredible for those first hours. However, the gameplay in the Pathless absolutely blew me away. Some games try to do everything and do nothing all that well. The Pathless does one thing, and if you ask me, it does it outstandingly well. The feeling of speed and momentum as you sprint across rolling hills, leaving a trail in the long grass behind you, it's incredible. Pair that with the need to constantly be shooting tags to maintain your speed, and getting around is just a blast. Outside of getting around, you're mainly doing various puzzles to collect tokens needed to cleanse areas of the map, ending with a multi-stage boss battle. Now, I've only played one, but for all as much fun as this, I'm going to be in for a real treat when I get back to play more. Even though I still want to get back to playing games what and when I want, the hour I had with this game is one I thoroughly enjoyed. Inscryption continued the streak of great games by doing equal parts to creep me out and reel me in with its unique gameplay. The way it's a roguelike, but you're only repeating the same game over and over because this thing won't let you leave is super cool. I love when a gameplay mechanic is written into the lore. It just makes it more immersive to play. The gameplay revolving around animal cards with several of them speaking to you is very interesting, and I want to see where it goes, both gameplay wise as well as plot. All in all, I just want to play more of this game because I've never really played anything quite like it. Soma has some of the most disorientating and creepy vibes that I've seen in a minute. Sadly, I know some pretty major twists about this game, so I'm not as confused as I would be going in blind, but still, playing the first hour, that disorientation hits real hard as I stumbled around the decaying power facility. The idea of human consciousness being transferred into robots to eternally suffer is horrifying, and something that probably would happen in this world if they could, and I want to play more to find out the parts of the story that I don't know and experience it all for myself. If I had one complaint, it's that the protagonist isn't freaking out nearly enough. As far as he knows, he went for a brain scan and then woke up in an underwater power station, and he's not tearing his hair out with panic and confusion. Anyway, it's great fun. Well, sort of. It's a really interesting story, so it remains on the list. And finally, I played Cursed to Golf, and it wasn't at all intentional, but playing this last was almost poetic with how it fit what I was trying to do. Cursed to Golf is a game where you're sent to purgatory, and the only way to escape is to play your favourite hobby over and over again until you complete 18 holes in a row and ascend to freedom. The gameplay here is fun, and the courses get continually more wacky the further you get into a run, but that concept of being forced to spend your time doing the thing you love is just about the most relatable thing that I've seen in a minute. I'm not in purgatory or anything, but this challenge has forced me to play an hour a day of a hobby that I love, and in that process, I felt everything from absolute joy to confusion to frustration. If you love doing something for fun, sometimes it can be nice to turn it into something productive. The other videos on this channel are a great example of this. I loved making them and I want to make more. But this challenge I can't recommend to anyone who loves games and is wanting to clear some off their backlog. All in all, I removed 2 games from my list and then added 2, so basically net 0. And one of the games I removed is because I'd completed it and I don't see any point in playing it anymore. I've learned a few things, like I've learned that I have more patience for games if they have an engaging story, and that emotion mattered a lot more to me than gameplay. I've learned that it turns out I am pretty good at judging what sorts of games I want to play and I'm going to enjoy. Only removing one game because I didn't enjoy it over the course of 30 is a pretty good hit rate, and that one game was only removed because I didn't really understand how to play and I had some incorrect expectations. Some good things have come out of this experience, don't get me wrong. As I played these games, I wrote down a ton of ideas for videos I'd like to make about them. That said, without playing more, I can't make these videos, so I'd have been better off playing them one by one anyway. So, to answer the questions I laid out at the start of this experiment, do I actually want to play most of these games? Yes. Should you try this yourself to cross some games off that you don't want to play? I'm going to go ahead and say absolutely not. Don't get me wrong, I think there is nothing wrong with having an organised list of games you want to play to help you decide what to pick next. Hell, even writing down the next 5 games that you're going to play in a row and then following it. But instead of trying to take a bite out of each and making a snap decision if you want to play more, give them enough time for you to come to a natural conclusion of your own and proceed from there. We play games to have fun, and making it into a task that I had to complete each day before I could go on with everything else turned it into work. Use that list to decide what you want to play instead of worrying about what you think you need to play. There's no need to rush through everything because you're scared of missing out. These games will always be here for me to play, provided Steam doesn't go anywhere, so I can play my way through my ever-growing mountain at my own pace, and if I never get around to something, chances are it wasn't something I ever actually really wanted to play that much in the first place. Thank you so much for watching my slow descent into insanity over the course of the month of April. I hope you found something useful from watching this video, even if the conclusion was pretty predictable given what we know about backlogs right now. Like I said, I have a ton of new video ideas for this channel, so definitely consider subscribing if you don't want to miss those. And definitely let me know what you're playing through next in the comments down below. But for now, that's everything, so I'll see you in the next one.